Hey everybody, what's up? Kevin here from the My Song of the Day Rock 2000 to Today YouTube channel. And with it being the new year, a new decade, January 1st, it is time now to go through and preview the year 2020 in rock and metal music. So now that 2019 is over and done, we just finished handing out our year-end awards, and with all the videos that we made for that, it was fun. Trust me, it was. But instead of looking back, now let's look ahead into the year 2020. We have many different things we can look forward to, such as anticipated album releases that we're expecting, those that we already know that are coming out in 2020 and what to expect from them, along with some things that might happen within music, and maybe make some bold predictions as well between what's going to happen with rock and metal, what's going to happen in pop culture. So let's see what we can come up with, and I've got 7 things for you, so let's get going in the 7 things we're previewing in 2020. With it being the year 2020, here in America, we will be having yet another presidential election. And since the last presidential election, if you've seen in the media, there has definitely been a huge divide within people from one side to the other. And one type of music that's always been on the forefront of everything political has been punk rock. Taking a look way back when, take a look at the Ramones, where Johnny Ramone has always been a vocal conservative, which has been a lot opposite of what a lot of punk bands have been. But again, punk band and politics nonetheless. Take a look at the Sex Pistols with their song Anarchy in the UK, and Green Day with American Idiot. So there's always been at the forefront of political nature. Now, since the 2016 election with Donald Trump's win, there have been a number of punk bands that have come out with records that really go deep dive into the emotions that were felt there. Take a look at my favorite band, Rise Against. They came out with Wolves and wrote that during the whole entire election process. Anti-Flag came out with the album American Fall in 2017, and Fever 333 came out with Strength in Numbers right at the beginning of 2019, and really encapsulated a lot of feelings that these punk bands and a lot of people were having at the time of the election and after. As the year 2019 ended, we saw over on the other side of the pond in Great Britain where the Conservative Party's Boris Johnson defeated the Labour Party's Jeremy Corbyn in an election for the British Prime Minister and trying to get a lot of things with Brexit going. And since then, you're going to get a lot of people, a lot of animosity, and you're seeing a lot of punk bands really stand up and talk about it. Taking a look at a punk band that could come out with a lot of music like this, take a look at a band like Anti-Flag, whose 2020 vision is coming out right at the beginning of January 2020. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And they've always been at the forefront, being very much on left-wing politics, vocalizing that heavily. Myself, we don't exactly line eye to eye, but I always respect their music and love to hear what they have to say. Now, listening to the singles that have come out so far, such as Hate Conquers All, Unbreakable, and White Nationalist, you listen to those songs and you really get this like hardcore, edgy, rough British punk feel to it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they come up with, especially on this album. And you take a look at the album cover for this one, I mean, it's Donald Trump right then and there. So they're one that we're expecting an album from in 2020. We know we're getting one, and I'm expecting to be heavily political, as, well, the album cover suggests. 2 other bands I'm expecting heavy political albums from in 2020 or just after in 2021. We'll see what happens. One is my favorite band, Rise Against. So now, they have said that they've been working on a new record, but there's no tentative release date. So it could either come at the end of 2020, 2021, who knows? And especially with their last release, Wolves, coming off of the 2016 election, you can tell there's going to be a lot of politicalness in that music. Given the fact that, in comparison to Anti-Flag, I believe they have much more of a polished sound to them when it comes to their punk rock, but it's going to be heavily politically charged and heavily politically commentated because of the writing style of Tim McElrath, what he writes about, and how he perfectly vocalizes it, and I love it. Another band I'm expecting something from, because they haven't released albums since 2016, is Against Me, with Laura Jane Grace, being the fact that she is a transgender woman here in America and fronting one of the most popular punk bands of the era, especially with everything that's going on with transgender rights. I believe that she can definitely have something powerful to come through, especially in a political climate today, with everything punk rock can stand for. With 2020 being a presidential election year here in the United States, what do I expect from punk rock in terms of its growth or its emergence within pop culture and the rock and metal community. I think it's going to grow a little bit within the rock and metal community, much like it did in 2016, because they're really the ones that are talking about these issues, and that rough and gruff sound really gets you feeling that it's coming from the core, coming from the heart, and coming from the people. And when you're really going to bring that into the forefront, I think a lot of people are going to really gravitate towards that a little bit more if they're feeling that angst, animosity, because it really pulls it forward. Now, within pop culture, I don't think really anything's going to happen. I think it's going to be largely ignored. And that's because of what pop culture likes and where the attention is. When you look at punk rock, the attention isn't where pop culture is looking. It's not really fully on social media as much as other genres such as pop and hip hop are. You take a look at pop. Pop has a very polished sound to it, and it's really going to focus in on what people are really listening to, what people want to hear. So it's going to be that easier listening that the generation that is really listening to pop music today is going to go for, versus punk rock, which is much more rough, which isn't really generating well with a pop audience. Take a look at the audience that loves hip hop and rap. Hip hop and rap is everywhere in culture and really is the cool thing right now, versus punk rock, which is, again, back to the underground, which is kind of where it belongs in anyway, because that's where it's born, that's where it wants to be. However, I just don't see it really gaining a lot of popularity within the larger scope of pop culture. But within the rock and metal community, I think 2020 is going to be a year where punk rock is going to end up coming back to a little bit more of a full force than it did in the previous years, but about as much as it did in 2016. So with us going to 2020, we already have some albums that are going to be coming out that I'm looking a lot forward to. And one of those is Anti-Flag's 2020 Vision. I already spoke about it in the previous section, to where I think it's going to be a heavily political album, which we've seen from the singles. It's going to have a little bit of a rougher punk rock sound to it, and I can't wait to hear the whole entire thing. One other album that I'm really looking forward to as well, that's going to be coming out in January of 2020, is the Aurora acoustic album from Breaking Benjamin. Now, why I'm looking forward to this one is because I've seen Breaking Benjamin do acoustic sets, and they're really good at it. I'm not going to lie. It sounds like their songs are really, really well done, acoustic and with the full on instrumentation that they normally go with. And not only with this album, they are going to be doing a little bit more collaborating as well with people like Adam Gontier, formerly of 3 Days Grace and Saint Asonia. Well, it's currently Saint Asonia. Lacey Sturm, formerly of Flyleaf, I should say, but there might be some going with Ben Burnley and her later on with a side project, along with Spencer Chamberlain as well, being featured from Under Oath. Now, what am I expecting from this album? I have to kind of compare it to the Ghost Note symphonies from Rise Again to kind of see what I can expect. When it comes down to it, I think we're going to get something that musically isn't as interesting as the Ghost Note symphonies, because with the Ghost Note symphonies, they really kind of reimagine the songs and really turn them into something where they're going to feel completely different from the originals, but they're not going to lose any of their integrity, and they're still going to hit just as hard. With Breaking Benjamin, I think they're going to go and do just a more straight acoustic style, reimagine them a little bit, but not as strong as those. However, they're going to be doing those features, and I can't wait to hear, especially Adam Gontier's Dance with the Devil, what Lacey Sturm is going to do, and what Spencer Chamberlain is going to do on Red Cold River acoustic. I'm looking really forward to those. Can't wait to see what they're going to come up with. A couple albums coming out in February have been announced as well. One of them being Green Day with their new album. I've heard the lead singer, Father of All, and I thought it sounded like a lot like Feel It So by Portugal the Man, just with Green Day in there. And I'm really concerned about that because it's an interesting change. I really didn't care for it, but I hope, that anything can change. We'll see what happens. I've only heard really 1 or 2 songs from that album so far, but I've got a feeling this one could be a dud. I hope they prove me wrong, though. Hollywood Undead coming out with New Empire Volume 1 in February 2020 as well is something I'm looking forward to, because I was rather disappointed from their 5th album, given the fact that I like they did songs like California Dreaming and We Own the Night, but they really went with like a more drawn back, softer sound throughout the whole entire album, which I thought, oh, this is interesting. Now, taking a look at the singles they've had right now, like Already Dead, I'm seeing that, they're still going with that rap rock sound, but they're going with less of that rap sound and focusing more on the rock sound, much like what Papa Roach did on Face Everything and Rise, where it was a less, rapping from Jacoby Shaddix or that new metal sound, more with that hard rock sound. I think they're going to kind of go the same way here, and I'm actually really excited to see what they do here, because I do enjoy that kind of sound. One other album we're going to get at the end of February is the Five Finger Death Punch album, F8. Now, I listened to the lead single, and I was actually really impressed by it because it hit hard, and it did something that I really haven't felt from a lot of Five Finger Death Punch songs, which I actually really liked Ivan Moody's vocals all the way throughout. You can actually feel the emotion in them. When I think on And Justice for None, you really had a struggle to really hear and feel for that emotion in his vocals. It was definitely on the lead single. I know there's going to be people that are going to end up bashing it no matter what, but we'll take an objective look at it when it comes. So with the albums that have been announced already, looking forward to a good amount of them. Now, we do have a couple of bands that are coming out with new music in 2020 that we do not know the release date yet that I do have to talk about. Of course, I talked about them at the end of 2019 as well, but I have to talk about them here. The first being In This Moment, because with their album Mother, it was supposed to come out in summer of 2019. Then it got delayed. Then we had this weird cryptic video that they were showing right at the beginning of October saying, the in-between, Halloween. And we were like, okay, we're going to get new music. And still, nothing came out of it. So we're kind of curious, and we haven't heard anything else since, so, it's like, what's going on here In This Moment? Come on, you gotta give us something. They will be going on the Mother Tour in spring of 2020 with Black Veil Brides, so I'm expecting it to be out somewhere between March and April. However, I'm really concerned about this album due to the fact that it's been teased a lot, and we're not really getting a lot of information here. So there's high expectations going in for this one, but I'm really not expecting a lot from it overall because I think it's going to be a letdown given what's going on. A Day to Remember is another band that had a release scheduled for 2019 on November 15th. However, the week beforehand, they released a statement saying that the album You're Welcome was not ready and they're going to release it in early 2020 because they want to make sure it was perfect. Now, I have to give A Day to Remember a little bit more leeway on this one because they never gave us a concrete release date. They just said an album was coming. And they're actually saying, it was supposed to come out on the day that you guys ended up hearing about or was leaked. However, it's just not coming out yet. So I do like the fact they're being a little more straightforward with us. I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say, even though I did not like one of their singles. I can't remember what the name of the single was. It's going to kill me, but it's going to be up there. The first lead single, though, Degenerates, I actually did enjoy it a little bit, but I'm curious to see where Day to Remember goes from here. Two other bands are expecting some new type of release from in 2020 that we know of already. One being Evanescence, with them saying they're going to come out with their first full album, studio album, since the year 2011. So I'm very curious to see what happens here because we'll see how well Amy Lee has developed as a songwriter and as a singer over the course of 9 years. Again, she was already phenomenal as was, but I just want to see what that time does. And we'll see if they end up playing a couple of different features or, a couple of different collaborations with someone like Sharon Denadell of Within Temptation. I'm really looking forward to see if something like that happens. And I think Evanescence is really going to come out strong. Now, the other band we're looking at right now is Black Veil Brides. And yes, Black Veil Brides came out with 2 new songs on Thanksgiving with Saints of the Blood and The Vengeance. But what I've heard what they've been doing is they're going to release certain things over the course of 2020, like in a couple of small chunks, like 2 or 3 songs here and there. And what that's going to end up doing is serving as a full album. It's just going to be released at different times and showing different parts of the band within their, discography. So like Saints of the Blood and The Vengeance really took for that knives and pens feel to it, or we stitch these wounds feel to it, I should say. And I really did enjoy, especially Saints of the Blood. The Vengeance I really didn't like because it was way too flat, but the Saints of the Blood was probably becoming my favorite song from Black Veil Bride. So I'm really interested to see what they come up with, especially visiting other albums such as Set the World on Fire, their self-titled album, and Veil. I know there's a lot of other bands that are anticipating albums that were supposed to be released in 2020, but these are the ones I know are going to come out with something in 2020. We're just going to see when it is. So we'll have to wait. One other thing I'm really looking at in 2020 is Metallica 20, which is the 10 shows they're going to be doing at the 5 different Danny Wynn Presents festivals over the year 2020, and the fact they're taking 2 headlining spots at each of those 5 large festivals. Now, the reason I'm really looking at this closely is because I did make a video about this right when it was released that, this was going to be happening, or I made a video about a month later saying the issues and the problems that I was going to have with this, and it basically is you're taking away a lot of exposure potential for some smaller bands that are, than Metallica, but are still huge to the point where it's, they could have that headlining gig like A Day to Remember where they're still going to pull in that huge crowd, but the fact that you're taking that headlining gig spot away really can damper it. Plus, you're going to jack up the price. You're getting a lot more people that are just going to like 80s rock or that 80s metal, that Metallica metal to come in, and they might really not want to stick around for the smaller acts. So I'm very concerned about what we'll do for the growth of the genre or the rebirth of the genre as well. However, given a look at the fact that 3 festivals, yes, the fact that 3 festivals so far at the beginning of 2020 have released their lineups and the days they're going to be out there, I took a look at them and I thought, I might have to reconsider. So now taking a look at some of the festivals, I'm actually pulling out my phone for this one so I can actually let you guys know the artists that are going to be at these festivals. So taking a look at Epicenter, the Friday when Metallica is headlining, you got Godsmack, I Prevail, Ice Nine Kills, yeah! New Year's Day and Fire from the Gods. Saturday, the headliner is Disturbed with other bands like Chevelle, Alter Bridge, Of Mice and Men, Ginger, Saint Asonia, Crown the Empire, and Anti-Flag. Take a look at their Sunday, you've got Volbeat on there, Gojira, the Dropkick Murphys, Hollywood Undead, Hell Yeah, Bad Wolves, and Sleeping with Sirens. Welcome to Rockville is the following week, and it's very similar to the point where you have Social Distortion, Dropkick Murphys, and Motionless in White also on Friday. Disturbed is your Saturday headliner as well. You got Lamb of God, Alter Bridge, Pretty Reckless, Hollywood Undead, Ginger, and Bad Wolves. That Sunday, you also have Godsmack, Gojira, Mastodon, Sleep with Sirens, Dance Gavin Dance, and Of Mice and Men. Sonic Temple is the week after Rockville, and that one you get a little bit different because you get bands like Bring Me the Horizon, Anthrax, Sleeping with Sirens on Friday. Slipknot is your headliner on Saturday with other bands that they're like Evanescence, Alter Bridge, Pennywise, Ice Nine Kills, Saint Asonia, and Fire from the Gods. Sunday you get bands like Deftones, Pretty Reckless, Dropkick Murphys, Pop Evil, and Dance Gavin Dance. Now taking a look at it, all three have very similar supporting casts, but when I think about it, of course they're going to have similar supporting cast for these three because they're weekend after weekend after weekend. So it does make sense they're going to be very similar, but they're all within different parts of the country. You get North Carolina, Florida, and Ohio. Now, I looked at supporting cast, I'm like, this supporting cast is really good, and they're actually divvied up rather well to the point where you're going to get a lot of different tastes from a lot of bands that are still, up and coming or have made it, but could be potentially very much bigger than they actually are. So I looked at it, I thought, this might not actually be a bad thing. Again, we'll see how the festival takes off. We'll see how each of these three take off. We'll see what happens with Aftershock and Louder Than Life when their albums come out, or their lineups come out, I should say. But we'll see what happens. So far, this might actually work. Might work. Another thing we're going to see in 2020 is the emergence of those bands that are coming back to the forefront, touring again, and reuniting. There are three major ones that are coming out back in 2020, so we're going to take a look at them. We all know that My Chemical Romance came back in December 20th of 2019 with a show in LA, and it sold out in 4 minutes. And if you looked on Instagram or anywhere else for that show, there were many, and I mean many people within the rock and metal community that grew up listening to this band and that were influenced by this band, that bought tickets and were on the floor. They weren't like in some specialty. They were on the floor enjoying this with their kids. There was a lot of people there as well. So when I looked at it, I thought, this is a great thing because they're going to be touring in Australia. They're going to be doing a couple things overseas. I'm hoping they come to the United States and do a full-fledged, tour for the United States because, yeah, I'll be there for a show. But the impact that it's going to have, I think it's going to drive a lot of nostalgia. And it's going to bring a lot of people older than the age of 21 a little bit more back to the genre because you're going to hear My Chemical Romance. You really connected well with that band, especially in middle school or in high school. It doesn't matter when it was. But you're just really going to connect with the emotion and the feeling. However, I don't think it's going to be a very sustainable growth because nostalgia does not sustain growth. I think it's going to be a little bit there, but especially in the younger generation, like younger than 21, not going to happen. Rage Against the Machine is coming back as well with their hardcore political stance, and absolutely love it, especially coming back in 2020. Perfect time for them to come back and do a couple of shows. Their overall impact, though, I have a little bit of an issue with this one and trying to figure out exactly what it is because I really don't see the younger generation or the old, like baby boomers or the Gen Y or Gen Z generation really fully embracing this one, and that's because just not really their sound. It's not really their sound. It's really aggressive. Unless you really like punk rock, it's not going to really connect with you. Plus, it's very overtly political, so some people might really stay away from it. Where it is going to help a genre out is with all the Gen Xers because this is what they grew up listening to. This is what they really like listening to, back when they were in the 90s or teens in the 90s. So this could really be something where it's going to grow the genre there and really get people back into punk rock, but as for a whole, I really don't see that happening all that much. Then you get a band like Motley Crue who's coming back where they're just coming back, they said they were going to stop touring at the end of 2015, but yeah, now they're coming back. Overall, I see this one more as just having fun, the guys having fun, and when it comes to growing the genre overall, you're really not going to grow the genre with it because it's going to be a lot of people going to those concerts, that watch them in the 80s and 90s, and you're not really going to grow with them. They're stuck in their ways. So the growth, with that, I see it happening a little bit, but mostly because of My Chemical Romance. One thing I see happening in 2020 is more copyright laws and how they can restrict content creators, especially on YouTube, from really creating great videos and potentially make money for themselves and for the artists as well. Now, over the past couple of years, we've seen YouTubers and YouTube personalities and other personalities as well really start to lose a lot of money because of copyright laws. Take a look at someone like John from ARTV. He recently reposted a video, I think it was back in December 2019, where he talked about how during his year-end award videos, he was putting them up and they're being demonetized because he took a small clip, an under 5-second clip from a song and put it in his video, which according to him at the time was legal. If it was and I found the law, it'll be up there. If not, well, then I just didn't do my research well enough. So you guys can see it from there. But talking about how all that money is now going to the record companies that own the rights of that music. Now, understandably, I totally understand the fact that copyright laws exist because you want to protect someone's intellectual property. If you created something, you want to make sure that you're paid royalties for it, which is totally understandable. However, if the law states that, you can use a under 5-second clip for review purposes, yeah, then it should be legal. Then you should be able to use that if that's under the law the way it is. And if you pay them proper royalties and you make some money too, I mean, what's the problem with that? But what I see end up happening with these copyright laws is a chain reaction point where there's more copyright laws so that these record companies make more money in the short term. But then you have less content creators like John from ARTV, like Rock, even maybe like myself as well, that talks about all this stuff, to the point where we just aren't able to do this and stop doing it, to the point where they have total control over it, or I should say the music. But then where the problem comes in there is not necessarily the fact that these artists getting paid, it's that the exposure for smaller artists is potentially incredibly limited, to the point where you're showing these artists that we're going to control everything, and it's all up to them, even though the internet has become the ultimate gatekeeper opener, because it just gets straight to the people, and it limits the exposure because then there's less people talking about your music. It's allowing the record companies to really control the narrative, and it could lead rock and metal music down a place where it's not really known anymore, which really frightens me. And I think it's just going to get worse and worse until something really happens with it. Again, I want to say that I do understand the fact that copyright laws exist so that people that create the music, that really work the music, that have that intellectual property, do get paid the proper royalties. But I'm saying they need to be paid the proper royalties, not steal all our money. The final thing I see happening in 2020 in terms of pop culture and seeing where rock and metal stand with it, I think it's going to further regress down the line and really become more irrelevant in pop culture than in comparison to other genres such as hip hop, rap, pop, and country. Now, the reason I see that happening is because taking a look at some of the statistics, now I know these aren't the best, but it does paint a very vague picture, but I think you kind of can get the point. When you take a look at statistics, I'm going to post them up here, when you're talking about the difference between what types of genres people are saying in their certain age demographics, what they prefer and what their favorite genres are, there's a certain number of people, especially the younger generation, they're leaning much heavier towards hip hop, rap, pop than they are rock, where the older generation is still leaning a little bit more towards rock, but they're starting to get away from it as well. Now you take a look at album sales as well. Yes, I said album sales because that's some concrete evidence I could see where rock album sales and metal sales have really dropped off over the years of between like 2008 and 2014, or anywhere within that time span, where some albums like pop albums and some rap albums, maybe they have decreased a little bit or they increased, but that decrease is not as much in comparison to rock and metal. Now, where I get concerned about that is because I see there being 3 major reasons why this is, and let's go through them. Now, the 3 major reasons I see rock music regressing further down the line in pop culture versus where it was at one point and other genres taking over is because with the younger generation, it's all a perception thing is the first thing. Rock music and metal music is seen as something that your parents listen to. It's considered dad rock. Like they consider the Foo Fighters dad rock. And they don't want to listen to anything their parents listen to. Trust me, when I was a teenager, like there was stuff that mom and dad listened to. Sure, like with the rock and metal stuff, I liked it a little bit more, but I didn't always want to listen to it. But I was able to gravitate towards something like Disturbed, like Rise Against, that really formed my opinion on music. Where now, if people are listening to that, in the older generation, and they have kids, their kids are going to want to really stray away from it as well because it's really not the cool thing. The cool thing to listen to now is that pop music or hip hop and rap, and if that's where the attention is, that's where they're going to want to be. So I totally understand that, but I really don't want there to be that thing as well because, rock is awesome. I want to see it grow, but it just doesn't have the perception with the younger crowd that it once did. Attention is another major reason because if you take a look online, hip hop and rap especially, they have the attention of the younger generation. Again, it's a cool thing. You see it everywhere. People want to dress like them, be like them, act like them, talk like them. And again, I totally understand that because when I was a kid, whatever the cool thing was, that's kind of what you wanted to go with. However, I just see that continuing to happen because rock music is not penetrating the culture of pop culture and really gaining that attention that it once had. It's kind of lost it. It really hasn't grown into the social media age or whatever's going to come next, maybe the voice first age. Now, the third thing is also the sound. One thing I've seen from a lot more people, especially in the younger generation, is they like more of a polished sound. You know, with certain hip hop beats, it's very polished, it's very crisp and well done to the point where it's very simple and easy to listen to. Same thing with pop as well. It's very smooth, but you take a look at listen to like rock and metal, and I think punk rock is a perfect example as the antithesis of it, because it is rough, it is brutal, but it is fantastic and it's right as well. But I think the fact of the matter is younger ears are not in tune to that rougher sound as they once were. They're more in tune to a more polished sound. So in the end, what I think is going to happen is rock music is going to end up regressing further down the line, and pop music and hip hop and rap are going to end up growing. Unless you get a band like someone like Greta Van Fleet, who's kind of I think more on the softer rock side of it, but still rock as well. If they end up able to penetrate further into pop culture than they already have, I think they have a chance, but I just don't really see that happening in 2020. So unfortunately, I think we're going to be regressing this year, guys. That's my call. All right, well, that's it for me. Thank you for watching the My Song Today Rock 2000 to Today 2020 prediction video, where we take a look at the year ahead and make our bold calls. If you like the video, give me the like. If you dislike it, give me the dislike. But put in the comments what your predictions are and respond to our predictions as well, because I want to see what you guys think and we can discuss them. So, yeah. Also, if you have not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified. I release videos every single Wednesday, sometimes some special Monday ones, and when our podcast videos come out every single Tuesday. Get those out of here. And follow us on our social media pages like Facebook. You can find out anytime anything's released there. Twitter, you're going to talk to us on Twitter. Instagram, you're going to talk to us on Instagram. We're going to ask you questions. You can watch our IGTV videos every single Tuesday night, where you get a behind the scenes look at what's going on here in My Song of the Day. And join our Instagram live streams every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central. It's an hour you get to talk to us about music and whatever. Also on all three, for the Song of the Day choice, you get to watch a 30-second preview. And follow us on TikTok, so we do some fun stuff on those. Get those out of here. We're going to talk about the Chord Progression Podcast. It is our very own podcast we release every single Tuesday, where we do deep dive into the world of music. So we'll talk about new music that's come out. Like yesterday, I went through that whole entire Bring Me the Horizon surprise album EP from December 27th, and I railed against it. So you get to hear stuff like that as well. You can hear interviews that we do with some smaller bands at the moment, such as Gold, Frankincense, and Myrrh, GFM, Kingdom Collapse. We've done Ascending from Ashes as well. And hopefully in 2020, now that we're into 2020, we can get some bigger and better bands on there as well, and keep the small bands up as well. We'll interview you, the fans, as well. You just got to ask, and we'll love to talk to music about you. And we'll do a full-fledged album reviews. We'll really go deep dive into each song. So if you want to listen to that, which I really hope you do, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or you can watch right here on YouTube. So everything I've said, links are all in the description below. Let's get that out of here. Last but not least, if you're not enabled our Amazon Alexa skill on your Amazon Alexa device, what are you doing? Go enable that right now, because that's where you can hear the full Song of the Day feature instead of just a 30-second preview on our social media pages. This is a great way to rediscover all bands you love, discover new bands that you're going to love, discover new songs, just rediscover your love for the genre that is rock and metal and all subgenres. And every single Saturday, you got to hear a small band that's trying to make it big, so you can get in the know with some of these younger, smaller bands before they make it big, and then you can brag to your friends, hey, I knew them before you guys did, haha. So please enable on your skill, link in the description below, and I want to thank you guys for watching the preview video. 2020 is going to be a huge year for My Song of the Day Rock 2000 to Today. Can't wait to see what happens. Till then, you guys know what it is. This is Kevin from the My Song of the Day Rock 2000 Today YouTube channel. End it with the hat flip. Starting the year off strong with a miss. See ya!